a little bit before they head to the polls in April. I would also like to thank our North Kansas City High School debate students who will be actually facilitating this particular forum. And with that, I will hand it over to the pros.
I am Grady Leip, a sophomore on the North Kansas City High debate team, and I'm happy to be here.
And I'm Harvey Pollack, a senior on the North Kansas City debate team, and I'm also very happy to be here with you. If we could, we'd just like to ask you to know, kind of introduce yourselves and then kind of the issues that are really important to you, just a very brief summary of them.
I'm Tony Saper, and the issues that are important to me are actually things that benefit the people who actually live and work here, not necessarily outside developers or outside interests that may want to do business here. They can, in fact, do business here, but the primary objective goal that I have is to ensure that it benefits us who live here and those who work here, because they have a stake in it too. And everything sort of stems from that. There are all kinds of different things that come up, different issues, different problems, but that's the lens that I use to look through things.
My name is Tom Bailey of Ward 2. Big issues that I see is just functional government. Government is not always, razzle-dazzle. The goal is that it quietly clips along and does the things that people need on a day-to-day basis, even though they don't even really realize it and they take it for granted. If you don't know enough about your city government, it's because it's running smoothly, because you'll know if it doesn't.
Hey, I'm Lindsay McGrone. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a lifelong Northlander. I grew up 2 miles north of here, just by the Northland Fountain. My family and I spent tons of time in North Kansas City when I was a kid. I was a graduate of North Kansas City High School. I was on the debate and forensics team, so I know what you guys go through. I moved to North Kansas City in 2018. My husband, Frank, and I have been married for almost 22 years. We don't have any children. We have 2 amazing cats. And we moved to North Kansas City because we found ourselves driving here almost every day to go to the community center or the park. And as soon as we moved into North Kansas City, we already knew there were a ton of great benefits, and we found out that there were so many more that we didn't even realize. The city services are incredible, the community is amazing, and the opportunity to participate in city government is beyond anything I ever would have imagined when I lived in Kansas City. When you get the opportunity to participate in actually running a place that you love, you bet I'm going to take it. So that's why I'm running for city council, is because I want to help make the community that I feel so connected to and absolutely love the best that it can be. And I think that the biggest issues that I want to focus on are community development that is resident focused and maintaining our excellent city services as we continue to grow.
My name is Linda Alvarez. I've been a resident of the city for many years also. My parents actually bought a home here in North Kansas City in 1979. They have both passed on, but I still reside in that house now. So if you ever go by on 24th Avenue and you see the 2 little white dogs in the window, that's my house. So I did work for North Kansas City Police Department over here for 23 years as the dispatch supervisor and retired about 2.5 years ago. I signed up for the Citizens Academy that they offer through the city, and that really piqued my interest in seeing how this side of the city works, because I had a lot of experience on seeing what the police department did, and the two kind of at that time they were working together, but you've got a staff now that they really work together, and it's nice to see that, and it's nice to be a part of that. And that's part of the issue, is to keep the city where it's at and safe for all the residents in the city, which I feel very safe here, and I'm proud to say that I am a resident here.
Speaking of safety, with the recent shootings going on at North Kansas City High School, as well as the Chiefs, what are your plans to help make our community a little safer?
I believe those specific incidents, really speak to the heart of some national issues that are beyond our ability to govern specifically here in the city. The state has a lock on most of those rights, or the federal government. In terms of small town safety, though, it's really backing our police department. Chief Freeman has done a tremendous job for the city. He's doing a good job of keeping the city safe. I think if you look at the statistics, they're actually quite good here in North Kansas City, especially in comparison to around us. Yes, we do have some small minor burglaries or break-ins, but a lot of times those things actually get turned back in, which is surprising. That's not common. But overall, it's continue to support our police department as they are. I think they're doing a great job.
So when I was in school at Northtown, the biggest thing we had to worry about were tornado drills. And then there was an earthquake drill added my senior year because there was a threat of an earthquake on the New Madrid Fault. And we never had to worry about gun drills or people carrying guns into our schools. And the fact that it happened during a basketball game, which I was a manager on the basketball team my freshman year, so I could have possibly been in the vicinity. And I switched from playing basketball to being on the forensics and debate team my sophomore year. Again, you all had a tournament that night, which I find absolutely terrifying that the situation happened at all, and really sad that it happened in a school that I love. So I think one of the biggest things that we can do is, exactly like Tom said, continue to support our police department and our first responders. But I think another thing we can do is ask the students in the schools what it is that they need from us as a community to feel safe in this community. It's hard enough to send your kid off to school and be a student in a place and focus on learning when you also have this threat of, I don't know if I'm going to get shot as I'm walking in the door. And so whatever we can do as a city council to support your safety, we'll try to do. But like Tom said, there's a lot of things that we aren't permitted to do because at the state level, our hands are tied. So the school district has a lot of ability to make safety changes and recommendations, and I fully support and would be open to whatever changes and initiatives the school board wants to do in order to maintain your all safety. I also think that I'm going to continue to try to petition my state representatives and plead with the governor to make it easier for us as a city council and as small cities to do our best to make our own places safe without them pushing down on us.
I like to say I remember, I think it was 2 years ago, a question came up, and I still remember it today. One of the students asked, how can you guarantee our safety? And to be honest, the most honest answer I can give you is we can't, but we can do better. And I think the school district has done a lot by, you probably don't like it as much, but you don't have the open lunches that they used to have. So you guys, and several times people could just walk in at any door, walk out. It was kind of like no one really checked to see who was coming and going. And I think that's changed by having the doors, to where they're monitored a little bit better, and you stay inside the school as long as you're there. I think that's made a big difference. And I also think that you as students can help us by, if you see something, don't hesitate to go to somebody. Report it to the teacher, a counselor, your resource officer. We count on you also. So it's something that has to be dealt with that I didn't think we would ever be at this point, but we do worry about kids in school. So it's sad that we're there, but we're there. So
I think our police department, in cooperation with the Clay County Prosecutor's Office, has done a very professional, thorough job documenting and building the case. It takes time, and the answers didn't come immediately. And I think the recent indictments have shown that. But anything that police do is almost always after the fact. They come in after damage is done. Something is stolen, somebody is injured, so we have to go beyond that. And it's true, a city in Missouri has no authority to enact any kinds of gun control laws or regulations. And the issue with gun control laws and regulations are, if you do it in a city or even a state, they can have little effect. The city of Chicago, for years, had a very, very strict gun control. But that didn't stop the crimes and murders that will go on. So what we need is something far beyond North Kansas City, Missouri, or even the Midwest. We need some kind of national action and a change in people's attitudes that says we're not going to do away with guns. That's too ingrained in our culture. But we have to have some kinds of very reasonable controls that protect the rest of us. Because otherwise, I'm sorry, we aren't safe. And I can't keep you safe.
Now, we do completely understand the limitations that come with a city council as opposed to national legislation, for example, but if you could speak to maybe some coordination efforts with the police station and with the school that you might try and expand upon to combat things like these in the future.
So I've never been on council. The three of them have. I've never ran for city government. The closest I've come to being involved in the school board is being a student at North Kansas City High School, and the closest I've come to being involved with the police department is when I participated in the Citizens Academy, and we got to walk around and visit all the police. But I think one of the things that we can do, or that I personally can do, is, I like to talk to people, and I think that having good relationships with the people that you work with and around is really important, because even if you don't agree on something, you can still try to see each other as humans and recognize that the differences or the challenges that we all face together. And so the police department specifically and the school board specifically, I think they're gonna do their own thing, but I can talk to them and say, are you guys working together? Are there things that we can do as a city council to support you? Do you need funding? Do you need us to help investigate other ways that we can support, adding additional safety measures to the school or to the grounds or to the environment itself? We as a city council, I know, have control over what gets funded to the police department. So if there are things that they need to help support the school board, we can do that. But outside of that, it's really going to be me trying to feel my way around the organizations and get my footing and figure out who are the right people to talk to, and talk to those people and find out what it is that they need from me and from the city so that I can help them get that.
I'd like to say, I think one thing that is to the advantage, at least of this school here, is the police department is a block away from your school. So when things happen, the response time is very, very quick. I do know that you have school resource officers in the school, along with, I believe, Clay County provides a school resource officer, and I think that's a big plus, too, for the school and to try to work around some of the things that, to keep things to a minimum or at least some safety. I also know that there are cameras, I think, around the school. I think that helps maybe to ward off some things that may happen, but again, you can't be everywhere at once. And so I think the police department is doing a pretty good job, but I would be open to any other suggestions that may come up to work with them and add any other security measures, maybe that you students even have some ideas, because you're there every day. You live, this going to school. It's your realm, your area. So I would be open to anything that you guys may suggest too.
I hate to say it, but probably the only thing that could be done is to actually have some kind of scanners at every doorway before people go in to keep the guns out. That limits our freedoms, it limits our access, but I'm not sure what else to do at this point. There was a time when if people had disagreements, and they always do, I mean, that happens, they would have fist fights, maybe they would have a knife. Injuries would happen, but people would live. With firearms, people living, those odds go way down. And we've seen this happening. So how do we balance the restrictions by having scanners at every doorway that we go through into City Hall, into the schools? Beyond that, I don't know. I'm hoping you can come up with a solution that my generation and those in front of you have not been able to.
I think Mr. Saper makes a good point. This is a function of people. It's as much as anything else. I think we need to really be thinking about how can we intervene prior to events, police or after the event. But is there anything on a national basis that we can see that has worked or that provides benefit, programs that help students who might be feeling this way or putting themselves in this position where they think that is their resort? Had the opportunity to listen to a really great speaker who's working out of Kansas City of Heartland 180 that really focuses on at-risk groups that have challenges, particularly young men who need, or can benefit from being, more, understanding how to react in situations where they have a lot of, strong feelings. And that's what we need is we need to get some of those people who, rather than, go off on one of these tirades that causes all of us a lot of issues, is to how to properly resolve those issues. So I'd like to see anything that we could do on the school side for that.
Okay, let's move on. What do you think is the most pressing issue that you will put your focus into as you are elected?
I think for me, my focus is I have to remember it's not necessarily what I want personally for the city. It's the people around me in my ward. So I do try to talk to my neighbors, see how they feel about certain subjects rather than just how I feel about it. And one example was when we had the talks with the Kansas City, with the Royals about the stadium coming into the city. That was a pretty big deal, and whether they came or not and how it would affect everybody. And regardless of what I personally felt, I felt like the important thing for me was to talk to my neighbors. What do you want? How do you feel about it? And represent them. And so I feel like I like the small town feeling that we have. I like keeping that as much as possible, but I also know that we're growing. Every city is growing, and that's a good thing too. So kind of keep a good balance is what I think is important.
Let me just read something on the literature that I put out there that can do it more succinctly. We all dodged a bullet over the proposed building of the Kansas City Royals Stadium in North Kansas City. City officials, elected and staff, were kept in the dark on the details for most of the months of the ongoing frenzy. We only knew what the media publicly reported. When we finally did learn what the Royals and their developer wanted, that all changed. Despite all the bells and whistles and flashing lights and hard sell, I am proud to have been part of a city government, set all that aside, and took a cold, hard look at what this meant for our city. The true costs and potential benefits, upsides and downsides, became clear after detailed and meticulous analysis. We drew lines where we would not go beyond to ensure benefits for those who live here and work here now and in the future. Clay County did the same. We all worked together. Negotiations ended and the Royals looked elsewhere. That is a sort of the template, I would say, for the change that is going to come to North Kansas City. Nothing stays the same. But that's the standard we should adhere to.
I'll once again agree with Mr. Sapert. Nothing stays the same. Our city will not be the same as it is today 10 years from now, nor is it the same today as it was 10 years prior. It's really about navigating into the future. One of the things, though, as a city council member, though, in the interim, as we bounce between other large events, one thing I would not support is the city involving themselves with eminent domain for other private parties, just on that fact. But really, I'd like to focus on making the city consistently easy to work with. Fortunate to have gotten to live here for 10 years, and when I need something fixed with the city or I need to call and get my sprinkler system updated, it's easy. I can call, I can get a hold of a human being. I probably even know their name. It's fantastic that way. I've heard of a couple minor complaints about that here recently, that it's become a little bit more difficult to get some things done. Would like to go focus on that, find out what any obstacles are that we can, but to have people be able to call, email, correspond with the city, and get quick feedback.
So I like I said, Linda's grown up around here, and I've grown up around here, and I know that things change, but there is still a feel of Northtown that existed when I was 16 years old and in the high school. I mean, even though the town has grown and changed, there is still a feel of this place. And I think that we can, as citizens and as a council, tap into that and figure out what is it about North Kansas City that makes it great, and how do we maintain that as we grow? Because I think the most pressing thing that we're going to face is growth. I mean, Tom is right. We will grow, we will change, but we don't have to change in the ways that people might think of when they think of change. We can maintain the character and the vibrancy and the qualities of North Kansas City that make our town different. I mean, as soon as you cross, into Armour Road, it feels like you aren't in Kansas City anymore. There's a sense of I am someplace else, someplace I want to be, and we can continue to make it that way if we focus on the things that we are currently great at, which is maintaining our city services to be as great as they are as we grow, maintain our sense of community, continue to know our neighbors, continue to, I know my city council people, I talk to the people when I go out, I frequent local businesses, and make sure that we as a community, when we welcome more people in, which we will, we encourage them to do the same thing and become a part of North Kansas City, because they move here for a reason, and we want to maintain that community feel as we continue to grow.
Thank you very much. So a few of you expressed interest in specifically current resident-focused benefit. Would you expand a little bit on what exactly you plan to do in that regard?
Thank you. Okay. Among the things that I would like to pursue further and continue is the Equity Inclusion Committee. That's one of the things I'm most proud of that I've been involved with in North Kansas City. It's had a bit of a rocky start because its mandate is so large to include virtually everything that goes on in city government, in state government, in our lives. But it's starting to get its feet on the ground. And I would encourage people to come to those meetings. They happen on Thursday evenings. I'm not sure of which of the second Thursday of each month. Because it underlies a lot of the kinds of things we need as a community that we've been talking about in terms of knowing each other, disagreeing with each other, but at the same time respecting each other. And that's a hard thing to do for all of us. But it's a kind of thing that gives us a kind of community unity. Even if we disagree, we can agree to disagree and we can talk to each other. And that's something that I hope we can continue to do in the future.
All right. So on the topic of the EIC committee, I think they've done fabulous work. Me and my wife have recently moved. We were in Ward 3. We moved to Ward 2. And one of the reasons we were looking here in North Kansas City was we wanted a little bit bigger house for our family. But we're adamant that we wanted diversity in my daughter's school system. North Kansas City is one of the most diverse school systems, I believe, in the state, if not the. The EIC is a natural reflection of, imposing that into our city government as well. There has been some challenges. There's been a struggle of convincing the council to make sure that the committee is fully staffed, so that because of the way the bylaws are written, they were not able to meet quorum. I'd like to see this, being a part of the council would be rewriting their bylaws to make their quorum easier to reach, so that, function of the government could actually work. Would also like to open it up to any other, really citizen-based feedback. There are a lot of committees here in the city. They're not as well known, like the TIF Commission and some of the hospital boards is trying to get city members back in. So in terms of resident-based focus, it's really about having our residents come participate, get what they need from the government. Whether that's trying to go get their building permit so they can get something changed in their house or whatever they may need. So trying to, respond back to those as quickly as we can.
I've already said that I think that North Kansas City has some of the best amenities of any community. I mean, we came from Kansas City, and when we moved here, our water bill was cut by a third. So it's some of the things that I think that I want to maintain and continue to fund as far as resident focus goes is we have really great trash services. We have lower cost water. I know that some of the costs for the water have gone up a little bit, but it's still half of what I used to pay in Kansas City. We have regular heavy pickup. We have incredible internet with Link City. We have amazing parks department who gives us incredible events with classes and concerts in the park. So I want to continue to make sure that those are funded. We get a YMCA benefit as a community that we can go and get a reduced cost at the YMCA. I want to make sure that continues to get funded. Our library is incredible and has really great classes and has some really great maker spaces. I want to make sure that gets funded. Those are the things that I think that the people who live here are really interested in and interested in maintaining. And that's not to say that it's not important to encourage growth in business and people to want to come here and operate businesses here, because absolutely I want them to. I want more things to be able to come here so I can walk to those businesses instead of having to drive someplace else. But if we're talking about resident-focused kind of approach, I think that the most important thing is to continue to fund the things that make this place great.
I just want to say I agree with you. You took several of my things I was going to say. Of the YMCA is a benefit, the Parks Department. We have a great Parks Department. They have a lot of activities, especially for seniors. Not admitting that I'm a senior, but I am. So they have a lot of programs, and just to involve the residents, to keep them active with each other. They do, they have the arts in the park that'll be coming up, and they work really hard to keep those open for the residents. I know that the bike trails that they have, so everything is walkable and rideable, putting a lot of work into making those accessible for everyone so that you can get around the entire city fairly easily, and it just makes it a fun place to be and to live. So I think that's keeping up with the residents and keeping them as a priority.
I know a lot of you have been in office or at least doing your best to serve the community in the past. Can you tell us just briefly some of the things that you have done for North Kansas City already?
Yeah, absolutely. I was very fortunate to get to be on city council previously in Ward 3. Once again, had to give up that seat once I moved, but very much enjoyed it, was looking forward to continuing to do it before the move. Other things for the city, I am part of the TIF Commission, not that we meet all that often, fortunately, but I do try to keep an eye on what's going on in the city. I have gotten to work in North Kansas City, and that's one of the things I found, it's kind of beneficial here in the city. I also run a small business, or several small businesses here, through a combination of I own a rental house or two, as well as I run a small kayak rental. So if you do see the big orange boats running around the city, that's me. I'm sorry. But it's my way of giving our community something that I really enjoy, which happens to be the Missouri River, which we're right next to. And getting to share that. And that's, I think our city benefits from everybody providing even those little niche interests and making us a much broader and diversified city.
So in 1993, the city flooded, and I helped move computers out of the North Kansas City High School basement and sandbag the school. So that was my first foray into helping keep North Kansas City from help keeping the school from going completely underwater. But in more recent times, I'm currently the chair of the Planning Commission, and I've been in the role of chair for about 7-8 months, and I've been on the commission for about a year and a half. One of the things that I've done in my role as chair is we helped develop an ordinance which was passed by City Council to limit the number of short-term rentals in North Kansas City and make sure that those are well regulated, particularly in light of the possible Royal Stadium coming. The last thing I want is North Kansas City to be attractive to people who want to buy up all of our real estate and turn those into short-term rentals instead of letting people who want to buy houses and live in them long-term, live in our community. We need more community members so that we can have a vibrant, active city government. We have to have city council members and board members come from our community, and if we don't have people living here, then we can't have a vibrant city government. The other thing that I do for the community is I currently operate a small entertainment venue on Armour Road. It's called The Rhino. It is a really great place for neighbors to come hang out. I've learned a lot about what it is to run a small business. It is not my full-time job. It is a hobby, and I never wanted kids. It's the kid I didn't want, but I love it, and it's a lot of fun. But it is definitely something that contributes to North Kansas City in a positive way, in my opinion.
So I don't think that I can actually say that I personally have done something for the city that's made a big difference by myself, but I've been a part of groups that have done it. Working at the police department, like I said previously, I think I brought some experience to this side when I became a part of the council here. So hopefully I brought some insight with that. And being a part of the council, I feel like we've actually done several things to focus on the city, to keep it protected from making decisions that would affect the city negatively. I do participate in a lot of the programs, like I said, the senior programs that they have at the parks, different things like that. I'm also, am employed 2 days a week at North Kansas City Hospital. So I see what goes on there too, and that kind of gives me a really well-rounded view and vision of what makes the city work. So I feel like I'm gaining a better understanding of that. And plus, like I said, I did take the Citizens Academy, which really made a big difference, and you can visit each department and see how they operate. So.
As a Ward 1 council member, I have promoted and supported those projects and policies that benefited the people who actually live in North Kansas City. Among them, I mentioned before the Equity and Inclusion Committee, apartment construction with affordable rent units, retail, and public spaces. Sidewalks where none existed before, expanding the availability of our fiber optic network, Link City, opening up the North Kansas City High School track to public use again. Inexplicably, it was closed for many years. We're doing water system modernization. That's the infrastructure. You don't see it. It's underground or in enclosed buildings, but it's essential for any city. And I want a fair deal for the use of our community center. It's a tremendous asset, but we have to be well treated by those who operate it. And we've got a new park in the works over in Ward 1. I'm in Ward 4 rather. I'm in Ward 1, but we need this for the entire city. It's going to be great.
Well, thank you very much. Several of you did mention the EIC and the diversity of our schools, and I understand it's a newer effort, but as I look at this group today, I don't see a single person of color, so I do wonder what you plan to do to expand the diversity of North Kansas City's government space.
So in order for somebody to serve on city council, they have to live in North Kansas City, which means that we need to make our community attractive for people who don't look like me to live here. One of the great things is that North Kansas City High School is the most diverse in the district, and so I would hope that there are people who go to the high school, have a good experience, and then think, that's a community I want to live in. I also think that efforts like the EIC, some of the things that they can do is try to figure out ways to essentially market our community to people who we want to represent the entire community. I know that we're not a community that looks just like this. We are a community that is multi-represented, just like the high school. I don't know specifically how to attract people to want to live here other than literally proselytizing it, which is what I do all the time. I work at UMKC, and you can't get me to shut up about how great it is to live here. The problem is it's hard to live here because it's hard to buy a house here. And so if somebody wants to move here, they either have to rent a house or move into an apartment. And we have to figure out some way to engage the people who are currently living in our in the apartments, that they're citizens too, and they can come participate in our city government as well. And as we get more and more apartments, which we are going to get, continue to engage with those apartment communities and get more people involved in city government so that we have better representation.
I would like to say that my husband is 100% Hispanic, so I do understand some of the cultural differences through his eyes, but I also know that I think the high school, when I look at the high school, has a huge diversity. And if we could get some of the high school students interested in maybe following or shadowing some of the government, the officials that we have here, maybe working for half a day here and there, and welcome them into city government, maybe get them interested. Also, if any of them are interested in like the police academy, something like that, they could come and talk whenever they have a display over at the police department. A lot of times, once you come into the city, then they realize maybe this is someplace I would like to live. And I think we have a lot of opportunities for that. We have new apartments coming in, and that might be a place to start. Home ownership is difficult, I think, for everyone in any community, the way housing is, the market is today. So that's a difficult process. But I would welcome any of the students to come and maybe participate in something at the city level.
We've fashioned a tool that we're still trying to figure out how to use. That tool is the Citizens Academy, a way to recruit people into an interest in taking part in the many aspects of city government, not just council, but commissions and committees of various kinds. We're still trying to figure out how to best recruit to that, how to bring people in, and to make them aware of it, if nothing else. And at the same time, we need to realize that diversity and inclusion goes far and deep within any culture. And one of them is that you don't have to be a homeowner to get active in your city government. We're 3/4 or 80% renters in this city, some in apartments, some in homes that have been rented. Those people are very much a part of this community. Many of them have, in fact, rented here for decades. They're as much a part of this community as anyone else. And we don't really need to have this homeowner rental divide because it's something artificial that we've created. And that's one of the things that we can do to reach out to these groups. That's about it.
I think you've correctly identified that there is some consistencies of who's up here. I can't say that I can change that personally about myself, but I will say on this case, I would probably I wouldn't say I'm going to punt the question, but I'm going to ask my better half. I'm very fortunate to be married to my wife, who is on the EIC committee, so I get to hear some of those conversations. I think that's a great source. That's where the city really has tried to ground source, some of the ideas of how to, work within this. One of the things we as city council members to do, and I would very much feel, that this is an important thing, is there are certain roles that require nomination. Now, some of those the city mayor will just do, right? It's his prerogative. But oftentimes he reaches out to council members, to his credit, and looking for people, not just, the same old people, but different people. And I think that he would be open if we as council members could bring to him great candidates that didn't look just like the people you have in front of you. And yes, a lot of them may be renters. I think we discredit the fact that people may not be able to be great citizens if they're not renters. That's absolutely not true. We have a large renting population, but they can be great assets to this community and ones that I really think we need to work as strongly as we can to tap into to make North Kansas City continue to be as wonderful as it is.
Thank you very much. Several of you expressed an interest in, for instance, the limitation of eminent domain and limitation of outside buyers. What specific policy would you enact to ensure housing stability to current residents?
I don't, to be honest, I'm not real sure how to do that other than I would like to see some way that we could make some of the houses more affordable within our city. Also, maybe not rent to so many different companies. I know different companies are coming in and buying up several houses together, and then they use them to either make short-term rentals or just rentals, rather than make them available to families. I think we're doing a pretty good job as far as the apartments that we have in the city. It's affordable, some of them for living in the city, and it's a good way to start, at least becoming a resident in the city. I would like to see more houses or more homes built. However, when you have only 4.5 square mile city, there's not a lot of growth there. So the option is to build up, which is what the city is doing with the apartments. So you can't really build out, and there's not a lot of land left to build on. So that's kind of the issue that we have here.
We have a problem with equity, inclusion, and fairness across many, many parts of our culture and society. One of them is economic. And there was a time when we tried to say, okay, let's establish public housing in this country. That was 50, 60, 70 years ago. And we did. But at the same time, that got subverted within the notions of our racial and other prejudices that we have. And in fact, we tended to lock people out who really deserve to have access to those kinds of things. So what do? How can we get that kind of equity and fairness? In our system, I don't think we really can. It's going to take a change in what we value, what we want, and the priorities we place. If we place our priorities on private profit over public gain, we won't have that change. Can we have one without the other, or can we balance them? That's what I hope you and those that come after you will deal with. Right now, we haven't done that very well.
Obviously, this has seen a lot of conversation in the community. It's one of our biggest hot topic issues. The city doesn't have the ability of changing some of these. The pricing is largely a function of the open market. It's what will a house sell for, and if you go and block entities from purchasing, also one, is that legal? And two, you're depriving the sellers of the best possible price at times. So this is not something that's so easily determined. And when you prohibit one thing, are you legally taking other people's ability to provide that service? That's an open question. The one thing the city can do, we can talk about tax incentives. Do we need to provide, or should we provide tax incentives to apartment buildings? I think one of the good functions of prices being driven up is there's more demand, which means that we don't necessarily need to provide those tax incentives unless we want to. And maybe we want to do certain things, such as condominiums. Condominiums allow not single-family ownership, but an ownership of sorts. So maybe that's something that we can look at. I know the city has tried to look for those, but I would certainly be doing everything we can to sway people who would build an apartment building to also look instead at building condos.
So one of the things that makes us great is the diversity that we have here. We have a diversity of incomes and experiences and cultures and ages, and that comes from having that can be built upon by having affordable housing options that we can use to continue to maintain that diversity of incomes and cultures and community and ages. The Garden Apartments is 60% affordable. We have Gallery Lofts, which is right down the street. It has affordable options. But the Oxbow, which is our newest apartment building, it's beautiful. It received, I think, more benefits from the city than any other project, and it has no affordable options. So I think one thing we can do as city council members is to identify what our priorities are as a city, and then tie economic incentives like tax incentives to projects that meet those goals. And if we say we want one of those goals to be home ownership, then we say, okay, a condominium project is going to get more favorable looks than a project that doesn't include home ownership. Or if we say we want affordable housing, then we're going to give the apartment project that says it will give us 30 or 40 or 50% affordable housing in their project more favorable looks than we will another project. Those are the things that we can do as city council people. We just have to identify what our priorities are and then tie the incentives to those priorities so that the people who want to bring projects to the city know, hey, this is what North Kansas City is looking for, and if I don't bring them that, I'm not going to get a project here in the city.
So I'm hearing a lot about the things that we already have that are doing well and also the limitations on your power. But what we're more interested in is what change will you bring? Do you have any specific policies or proposals that you are planning on implementing upon election?
Thank you for the cue. I had forgotten. No. Other than what I said before, in terms of the lens that we depend largely on people coming to us who want to make profit in housing, in businesses, or some such. What we have to do is look at those proposals and look at them through the lens I talked of before. Do they benefit the people who live here, work here, now and in the future, not just the developers? They have to be, for me, they would have to include affordable housing units, genuinely affordable, not necessarily technically, because that's how some developers get by. But they'd also have to include kinds of things that sort of expand on our public space, such as having an art center on the ground floor of a building as we have over here, such as having maybe public access to pools, the amenities that you find in some of these developments that are only available to the residents, and they become sort of, gated communities. They lock themselves in and lock all the rest of us out. All those kinds of things need to be balanced. We just accept what was as what should be, but we can do things that are different. We can expand our thinking. Now, some people, developers say, well, we're not going to come there. But some will say, yeah, we're not going to make as much money as we wanted, but we're still going to make money. And those are the people we want.
Well, I'm going to sidestep the question here just briefly and say thank you to the North Kansas City debate team for coming in and operating the forum, wrangling us folks, which, if anybody deals with city government knows, is no easy, mean feat. To your question about change, good change is often driven from the bottom. It is about, the city getting a hold of someone who's brought a great idea. One of the ideas I'd love to see go in is we've talked about a restaurant with a zip line event going over by across the 35. I'd love to see us continue to pursue that. But a lot of times in city government, change should be slow. It is a process that's set up to be somewhat cumbersome, and for good reason. The reason our government system works, or to the degree that it does, is change is slow, and not one person who has the idea that they think is going to be the best and most wonderful thing can move through the process without other people to join them. So maybe I won't have the thing that changes everything, but I would like to certainly help any other council members who do have that idea as well. And if I do come up with something, I'll certainly be able to hopefully coalesce a group that would agree with me.
So I think that one of the things that I would like to do initially is my ward is I'm in Ward 2. One of the developments in my ward is the Gardens Apartments, and it's a senior community. One thing I would like to possibly investigate is putting in a pedestrian crosswalk at the intersection of Swift and 30th. Right now, there's a bus stop on one side with a bench, and it's the main entrance to the Garden Apartments. And lots of seniors, cross that street every day, and there's a speed hump, but there's no protected cross, and it would be really nice if it was just a button that they could push with a flashing light that would stop people so that they could cross the road safely. Something else that I would like to do, and I know it's already in the works, is I would like to get a marijuana sales tax on our ballot so that we can start collecting money from the dispensary that's here in town. Other communities around around North Kansas City already have sales tax they're collecting that. We are just losing out. So we need to get that on our ballot. I know it's ready to go. It was ready to go last spring, and it was postponed so that we could get the parks tax pushed through, and it passed, and that's fantastic. But we need to start getting that sales tax for marijuana on our ballot. The final thing is just, and this is just a reiteration of what I've already said, is we just need to ensure that we maintain funding for the things that we love here and that are working well. And that includes our water system, which is woefully in need of repair, so we're going to be looking into that. And just make sure that we continue to keep up with things like our trash pickup and our leaf pickup and our heavy pickup and all of the things that we sometimes take for granted, but that are incredibly important and vital to our city.
I would like to start off by saying I think we have an excellent public works department here. They do a great job of keeping our streets clean and the debris out of the streets. I think that they are also working on a plan to upgrade the sewer system, which is much needed. And as Lindsay said too, the water system, they're working on different ways to improve the water system that we have. Community development is working on a lot of different projects for the city as far as landscaping. I think they're planting flowers and different trees to keep the city, the beautification program. I personally, if available, when these are completed or to a point where they could start working on street lights. I live in Ward 3 in the Avenue area. I think an overhaul of the city street lights there, brighter lights, bigger lights would be a huge advantage to the neighborhood. I think it would cut down on crime. A lot of older residents live in that area, and I think they would feel safer with the street lights. That I think it would make a huge improvement in the city, and I would like to see, a goal of mine would like to see street lights added.
So with that, we are almost at 7 o'clock. In fact, I think we are at 7 o'clock. I would like everybody to give a big round of applause to Harvey and Grady, who has facilitated this. And again, I would like to thank the candidates for taking the time to come out. I would like to note that Katie Stokes did have a prior engagement. That's why she is not here. Just for those who are viewing who may ask, where's the Ward 4 candidate? She did have a scheduling conflict for this particular event. I would like to remind everybody that Election Day is on Tuesday, April 2nd. All North Kansas City residents all actually go to one voting poll, which is the North Kansas City YMCA, and polls are open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. So again, thank you, and thank you to our facilitators. We appreciated all of your engagement and activities tonight. Thank you.